At 6:05 a.m. on May 22, 2010, a chilling sequence of events unfolded in the skies above Mangalore. Warnings blared in the cockpit, alarms screamed, and within seconds, Air India Express Flight 812 plunged into disaster. What caused an experienced pilot and a state-of-the-art aircraft to spiral into catastrophe? It was a quiet night at Dubai International Airport. The Boeing 737-800, scheduled for Air India Express Flight 812, was ready for departure. 6 crew and the passengers, 160 in total, included families, workers, and students returning home to Mangalore. For many, this was a moment they had been longing for, a reunion with loved ones. The 6-member crew prepared the aircraft for takeoff, and at exactly 1:06 a.m. local time, Flight 812 left the tarmac, climbing into the dark skies over Dubai. For most of the flight, the Boeing 737 flew smoothly through the night, its passengers oblivious to the tragedy awaiting them. Mangalore's Bajpayee Airport, the destination for Flight 812, is no ordinary airfield. Located in the hilly terrain of India's Western Ghats, it features a tabletop runway perched atop a plateau. With steep gorges on both sides, landings here demand absolute precision. There's no margin for error. As the clock neared 6 a.m., the aircraft began its descent toward this challenging runway. But what happened next would turn routine procedures into a nightmare. Inside the cockpit, the captain, a seasoned pilot with over 10,000 hours of flight experience, had been asleep for much of the flight. As the aircraft approached Mangalore, the captain, now awake but possibly disoriented, took control. The descent into Mangalore was already off to a problematic start. The Area Control Radar, MSSR, was absent due to unserviceability, and as a result, the aircraft was given descent clearance at a shorter distance as compared to the normal. Adding to the difficulty, the captain initiated the descent too late, as the crew had failed to plan the descent profile so as to arrive at the correct altitude for positioning into ILS approach, leaving the aircraft far too high and steep as it approached the runway threshold. The onboard warning systems blared repeatedly, sink rate, with the overspeed alarm, clear indicators that their approach was unstable. The first officer, who had been monitoring the situation closely, urged the captain to abort the landing and perform a go-around, a standard maneuver that would allow them to reset the approach and attempt a safer landing. But the captain, now determined to land, ignored these warnings. The Boeing 737 crossed the runway threshold at an altitude of over 200 feet, far above the ideal height for landing. Instead of touching down at the start of the runway, the plane landed nearly 5,200 feet into the 8,000-foot runway, leaving just 2,800 feet to stop, far less than the minimum required for the aircraft at its weight and speed. With only 2,800 feet of runway left, the aircraft was traveling at over 260 kilometers per hour. The captain immediately engaged reverse thrust and applied maximum brakes. The tires screeched, smoke billowed, and the engines roared as the aircraft fought to slow down. But the speed was too great, and the runway was rapidly running out. Realizing the severity of the situation, the captain made a desperate, last-minute decision. He attempted to take off again. But by this point, the plane's speed had dropped too low to achieve liftoff. The engines struggled to generate the necessary thrust, and the Boeing 737 barely lifted off the ground. Seconds later, at 6:05 a.m., Flight 812 plunged off the edge of the tabletop runway 24, tumbling into a 300-foot gorge. The aircraft broke apart with impact, scattering debris across the cliffside. Within moments, a massive fire engulfed the wreckage, leaving little chance for survival. Of the 166 people on board, only 8 passengers survived. The rest were tragically lost, many unable to escape the burning wreckage. In the aftermath, investigators discovered chilling details. The captain's fatigue, his refusal to heed warnings, and his misjudgment during landing were central to the disaster. The challenging nature of Mangalore's tabletop runway compounded these errors, leaving no room for recovery.